Catherine Hartwell laughs when Elijah Thompson walks into the law office. Actually laughs. "Is someone here to fix the air conditioning?" she says, loud, so everyone hears. Elijah is still in his janitor uniform, navy shirt, name patch, came straight from his shift at Mercy Hospital because the lawyer said it was urgent. The attorney, James Morrison, looks up from his papers. "Mr. Thompson is named in the will." "Please sit down, Elijah." Catherine stops laughing. "Named in what will?" "Your father's." The room goes completely still. Elijah doesn't understand either. He cleaned Dr. Hartwell's office for 20 years, mopped the surgical wing floors, emptied trash from the executive suites, but he didn't. "Why?" Catherine asks, voice tight now, careful. James Morrison opens a folder, pulls out a single document. "Because," he says quietly, "Elijah Thompson is Richard Hartwell's biological son. My name is Linda Martinez. I run housekeeping at Mercy Hospital in Phoenix, Arizona. Been doing it for 23 years. I've seen a lot of things in that time. Births, deaths, the whole range of human experience compressed into fluorescent-lit hallways. But I've never seen anything like the day Elijah Thompson found out who his father was." Let me back up. Elijah started working at Mercy when he was 25 years old. That was 20 years ago. I was new to management then, still learning how to run a department. He came in for the interview, tall, quiet, serious, needed the job bad. I could see it in the way he sat forward in the chair, the way he listened to every word like he was afraid to miss something important. "I'll work hard," he told me. "In any shift, any hours, I just need steady work." I hired him. Night shift, 11 to 7, the shift nobody wants because it's lonely and the building gets strange when it's mostly empty. Elijah never complained, not once in 20 years, showed up on time, did his work. Kept to himself mostly, but he was kind to the nurses, respectful to the doctors, gentle with patients if he ever crossed paths with them in the halls. Dr. Richard Hartwell founded Mercy Hospital 40 years ago, built it from nothing into one of the best surgical centers in the Southwest. By the time I knew him, he was in his 70s, still sharp, still working, still running the board meetings and making the big decisions. He was the kind of man who noticed things, remembered names, knew everyone's story, including Elijah's, though I didn't understand that then. I'd see them sometimes, late at night when I was finishing paperwork in my office. Dr. Hartwell walking the halls. He did that when he couldn't sleep, which was often after his wife died. And Elijah cleaning. They'd nod at each other, exchange a few words. Normal stuff. Doctor and janitor sharing space in an empty building. I never thought it was anything except two men who worked late recognizing each other's presence. I was wrong. Dr. Hartwell died on a Tuesday morning. Heart attack. Sudden. He was 78 and still coming in 4 days a week, found in his office by his daughter Catherine, who was also a cardiac surgeon. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The hospital shut down for the memorial service. Everyone went. Elijah went too. Stood in the back in his work clothes because it was the only formal thing he owned. Nobody noticed him there. Nobody ever noticed Elijah unless they needed something cleaned. The will reading was scheduled for a week later. I only know because Catherine mentioned it to me in passing. She was worried about staffing coverage, wanted to make sure we had enough people while she dealt with estate matters. What I didn't know was that James Morrison, the estate attorney, had called Elijah that same morning, asked him to attend the will reading. Elijah told me about it afterward, said he almost didn't go, didn't understand why he'd been invited, thought maybe Dr. Hartwell had left him a small bequest, longtime employee, gesture of appreciation, something like that. He asked if I'd come with him, for moral support, because he felt strange about the whole thing. I said yes. The law office was downtown, tall building, marble lobby, and the kind of place that made you aware of how much money the people inside it handled. We took the elevator to the 14th floor. Elijah was quiet, hands clasped in his lap, still wearing his work uniform because he'd come straight from his shift. The receptionist looked at him twice, started to say something, stopped when James Morrison came out of his office. "Elijah, thank you for coming." James shook his hand, genuine, warm. "Please, come in." The conference room was all dark wood and leather chairs. Catherine was already there, sitting at the head of the table like she owned it, her husband Michael beside her, hospital administrator, well-fed and comfortable in an expensive suit. Their daughter Sarah, 25 and already a resident, scrolling through her phone. They looked up when Elijah walked in. Catherine's face did something complicated. Recognition, maybe, or confusion. Then it settled into something close to amusement. "Is someone here to fix the air conditioning?" she said, not quietly. "To the room." Michael smiled. Not kind. The smile of someone who's just seen something they think is funny and inappropriate. Sarah glanced up from her phone, looked back down. "Mr. Thompson is named in the will," James said. His voice was level, professional. "Please sit down, Elijah." Elijah sat, in the chair furthest from the family. I sat beside him. Catherine's smile faded. "I'm sorry, named in what will?" "Your father's." "That's ridiculous." She gestured at Elijah, at his uniform, at the visible difference between him and them. "He's a janitor. He's also named in the will. That specifically and deliberately." James pulled out his reading glasses, opened a leather folder. "Shall we begin?" The room smelled like furniture polish and old money. The kind of place where decisions got made that affected people's entire lives. I watched Elijah sit very still, hands folded, face neutral, but I'd known him for 20 years. I saw the tension in his shoulders. James started reading the usual legal language, declarations of sound mind, executor appointments, then the specific bequests. "To my daughter, Catherine Ann Hartwell, I leave the family residence at 4725 Camelback Road, along with its contents and grounds." Catherine nodded, expected. "To my son-in-law, Michael James Hartwell, I leave my shares in Hartwell Medical Supply Company, currently valued at approximately $8 million. Michael relaxed slightly, and he also expected. "To my granddaughter, Sarah Catherine Hartwell, I leave a trust fund in the amount of $5 million to be administered by James Morrison until Sarah reaches the age of 30. Sarah looked up from her phone, smiled. James paused, looked at Elijah. Something passed across his face, sympathy maybe, or the look of someone about to detonate something carefully and deliberately. "To Elijah Richard Thompson," he continued, "whom I have known for 20 years and watched with pride, I leave Mercy Hospital itself. All property, all buildings, all equipment, all assets and holdings, full ownership transferred upon my death." The room went completely silent. Catherine stood up. "Excuse me? I'm reading your father's will. That's insane. He can't—" She looked at Elijah, really looked at him. Her face was white. "Who are you? What did you do to him?" Elijah didn't move, didn't speak. I watched his hands tighten slightly against each other. "Let me finish," James said quietly. "There's more." He turned a page, pulled out a second document. Richard Hartwell included a letter of explanation. He requested it be read in full to all parties present. James looked at Catherine. "You may want to sit down." She sat. James began to read. "My name is Richard Hartwell. If you're hearing this, I'm dead. I'm sorry for the pain this will cause, but I'm too much of a coward to say it while I'm alive, so I'm saying it now." The words filled the room. Heavy. Unavoidable. 45 years ago, I had an affair. I was married to Joan. We'd been married 3 years. I was a surgical resident, working 80-hour weeks, exhausted, lost. A nursing student named Diane Thompson showed me kindness during a particularly difficult rotation. One thing led to another. It lasted 6 months. Catherine's face was stone. Michael had stopped looking comfortable. "When Diane told me she was pregnant, I panicked. I was building my career. I had a wife. I had ambition. I told Diane I couldn't be a father to her child. I gave her $20,000 and told her to disappear. She took the money. She disappeared." I felt sick, looked at Elijah. His face was completely blank, locked down, the way people look when they're holding something enormous inside and can't let it show yet. "I didn't see Diane again for 30 years, James continued reading. "She died of breast cancer at age 52. I read her obituary. It mentioned a son, Elijah Richard Thompson. Richard, my middle name. I think she was telling me something, or maybe just marking him as mine in the only way she could." The conference room was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning. I looked him up, found out he worked at Mercy Hospital, in housekeeping, night shift. My son was cleaning the floors of the hospital I built. I could have told him, could have claimed him, could have done 100 things differently, but I was still a coward, so I just watched him. Sarah had put down her phone, staring at her grandfather's words, at Elijah, at the man she'd probably passed in the hallways 1,000 times without seeing. For 20 years, I watched my son mop floors and empty trash and live with dignity despite having nothing. I watched him be kind to patients. I watched him show up every night and do work that nobody notices unless it isn't done. I watched him live a better life than I did, despite having a fraction of my advantages. James's voice was steady, professional, but I heard something underneath it, emotion he was working to contain. I'm leaving him Mercy Hospital because it's mine to give, and because he deserves it, not because of his blood, though that matters too, but because he's earned it. Every floor he's mopped, every night he's worked, every kindness he's shown in a building that carries my name, but should carry his. Catherine made a sound, small, choked. Catherine, you're a brilliant surgeon, but you're also my daughter by privilege, born into wealth, given every advantage, never wanted for anything. Elijah is my son by blood and by character, but he's earned what I'm giving him in a way you never had to earn what I gave you. I'm sorry for that inequality, but I'm correcting it now, in the only way I know how. James folded the letter carefully, set it on the table. There's more documentation, he said quietly. DNA analysis from Dr. Hartwell's medical records, paternity confirmed. Elijah Thompson is legally recognized as Richard Hartwell's biological son and heir. Elijah still hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, just sat there with his hands folded and his face locked down. Catherine stood again, slower this time, looked at James, at me, at Elijah. This isn't over, she said. Her voice was shaking. This is fraud, manipulation. She pointed at Elijah. He did something, convinced my father. Your father had terminal pancreatic cancer, James interrupted. He was diagnosed 8 months ago. He knew he was dying. He had all his mental faculties until the end. 3 separate psychiatric evaluations confirm his competence. This will is legally sound and thoroughly documented. I'm contesting it anyway. That's your right. James stood. But you should know, Dr. Hartwell anticipated that. He's left funds specifically designated for defending this will in court. Elijah will have legal representation whether he can afford it or not. Catherine grabbed her purse, looked at Michael, at Sarah. We're leaving. They left. The door closed. The conference room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic 14 floors below. Elijah finally moved, unclenched his hands, pressed them flat on the table. I don't understand, he said. His voice was rough, like he'd been holding his breath and just remembered how to use air. My mother, she never told you, James said gently. According to Dr. Hartwell's letter, he asked her not to. As part of their agreement, he wanted you to have a life free from the complications of being his illegitimate child. So she let me grow up thinking my father was nobody. She let you grow up free. James sat back down. For what it's worth, Dr. Hartwell regretted that, deeply. That's why he left you the video. There's a video. James pulled out a USB drive. Recorded 3 months ago. He wanted you to hear it from him directly. Elijah stared at the small piece of plastic. Everything he didn't know about where he came from contained in a drive smaller than his thumb. I need to think, he said. Take your time. James pushed the USB across the table. But legally, as of now, you own Mercy Hospital, all of it. Buildings, equipment, assets, everything. It's worth approximately $40 million. $40 million. The man who'd been mopping floors for 20 years now owned the building. I drove Elijah home. He lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Glendale. Modest, clean, the kind of place that said he'd been living within his means because those means were small. He got out of my car without saying much. Just, thanks for coming with me, Linda. Yeah, I said, always. He walked toward his building, uniform still on, $40 million richer than he'd been that morning. Father he never knew now dead and documented. I watched him disappear inside, and thought about Catherine Hartwell's face when she realized the janitor she'd laughed at now owned everything her father had built. This wasn't over. Not even close. The hospital found out by the next morning. I don't know how. Maybe Catherine called people. Maybe the law firm leaked it. Maybe news like that just travels fast when you're talking about $40 million changing hands. I got to work at 6:30. The parking lot was already buzzing. Nurses clustered by the entrance. Administrators standing in tight groups. Everyone looking at their phones, whispering. Elijah's shift ended at 7. I waited by the staff entrance to catch him before he left. He came out at 7:05, still in his uniform, pushing his cleaning cart, like it was any other morning. 3 nurses watched him walk by, didn't say anything. Just watched. "Big Elijah," I called. He stopped, turned. His face was tired, the kind of tired that comes from not sleeping, not from working. "You okay?" I asked. "Not really." He looked at the nurses. They looked away. "Everybody knows, don't they?" "Yeah," he nodded slowly. I figured. "You going home?" "Eventually. Need to go somewhere first." He hesitated. "Can you drive me? I'll explain on the way." We got in my car. He directed me toward North Phoenix. Quiet neighborhoods, older homes, trees that had been there for decades. "My mother's buried here," he said when we pulled up to the cemetery. "Haven't been in a while. Feels like I should, I don't know, tell her something, ask her something, both." I stayed in the car while he walked to her grave, watched him stand there for almost half an hour, talking maybe. Or just being near the woman who'd raised him alone and never told him where he came from. When he came back, his eyes were red. "She did what she thought was right," he said, getting in the car. "That's what I keep telling myself. She took his money and raised me away from all that family drama and let me just be normal." "Do you believe that?" "I'm trying to." He looked out the window. "But I keep thinking about all the times we struggled, all the times she worked 2 jobs, all the nights I knew she was worried about rent or food or medical bills." His jaw tightened. He gave her $20,000. That's what he thought we were worth. What I was worth. I drove him home. He asked me to come in, said he needed to show me something. His apartment was exactly what I expected. Clean, organized, not much furniture. A couch that had seen better days, a small TV, books, lots of books, medical textbooks actually. I'd never noticed that before. "I take classes," he said when he saw me looking. "Online, community college, pre-med requirements." I stared at him. "Pre-med? I'm 45. I know it's stupid, but I thought, maybe eventually." He stopped, shook his head. "Doesn't matter now." "Why doesn't it matter?" "Because I own a hospital, Linda. I can't go to medical school. I can't." He sat down on the couch, put his head in his hands. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do." I sat beside him. "You don't have to decide today. Catherine's going to fight this. You saw her face. She thinks I manipulated him, convinced him somehow." He looked up. "I didn't even know who he was. I mopped his office floors. I emptied his trash. That's all I ever did." "Did he ever talk to you? In those 20 years? Elijah was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes, late at night, he'd ask how I was doing, how my mother was, before she died. If I had family, plans, dreams." He paused. He asked me once why I was taking medical classes. I told him I wanted to understand the place I worked, wanted to be more than just the guy who cleaned up. He smiled, said that was a good answer. "He was watching you." "Yeah, I realize that now. I just thought he was being nice, the way some doctors are, actually seeing the staff instead of looking through them." Elijah stood, walked to his small kitchen. "I need to watch the video, the one James gave me. But I can't do it alone. You want me to stay?" "Please." He set up his laptop on the coffee table, inserted the USB drive. A single file appeared, dated 3 months ago. Elijah pressed play. Dr. Richard Hartwell appeared on screen, thin, visibly sick, but his eyes were clear, alert. He was sitting in what looked like a home office, bookshelves behind him, diplomas on the wall. "Elijah," he began. His voice was strong despite his appearance. "If you're watching this, I'm gone. And you know the truth. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry for a lot of things." He paused, took a breath. "I'm not going to make excuses. What I did to your mother, to you, was cowardly. I chose my career and my comfort over my responsibility. I gave her money and told myself that was enough. It wasn't. Nothing could be enough to make up for abandoning my child. Elijah's hands were clenched on his knees. I found out about you 30 years too late, when your mother died. When I read that obituary and saw your name. Richard. She gave you my name? Dr. Hartwell's voice cracked slightly. I think she was telling me you existed. One last message. Here he is. The son you abandoned. He's real, and he's alive, and you owe him. The video continued. I could have come to you then. Could have told you who I was. Could have given you money, a job, anything. But I was still a coward, still worried about my reputation, about what people would think, about Catherine finding out. He looked directly at the camera. So instead, I just watched you. For 20 years, and I learned who you were, not who I wanted you to be, who you actually were. Dr. Hartwell leaned forward slightly. You're kind, Elijah, patient, hardworking. You treat everyone with dignity. Nurses, doctors, patients, even the people who don't notice you. You've been taking medical classes, working towards something, trying to better yourself despite having nothing handed to you. You're a better man than I ever was, and you're definitely a better man than I raised Catherine to expect from the world. Elijah's breath caught. That's why I'm leaving you Mercy Hospital, not as charity, not as guilt money, as recognition. You've been part of that building for 20 years. You know it better than anyone. You care about it in a way my entitled daughter never has. You'll do right by it. By the patients, by the staff, I know you will. Dr. Hartwell sat back. Catherine will fight you. She'll call you a fraud. She'll say you manipulated a dying old man. Let her. The evidence is documented. The DNA is confirmed. You are my son, legally, biologically, and more importantly, you're the son who earned what I'm giving him. The video was almost over. I'm sorry I can't say this to your face. I'm sorry for all of it. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed a father, when your mother needed support, when you were growing up wondering where you came from. I'm sorry for being exactly the kind of man who has everything and does nothing meaningful with it. Dr. Hartwell looked tired now, the illness showing. But I'm trying to fix it, in the only way I have left. Use what I'm giving you. Build something. Be better than I was. And if you can... His voice broke. If you can find it in yourself, forgive your mother for keeping the secret. She was protecting you from me, from my selfishness, from the mess I made. The screen went black. The apartment was silent. Elijah sat completely still. He staring at the empty laptop screen, tears running down his face that he didn't bother wiping away. I didn't say anything. Sometimes there's nothing to say that doesn't make it worse. After a long time, Elijah spoke. He watched me for 20 years and never said a word. He was scared. He was a coward. He said so himself. Elijah finally looked at me. But he was my father, and I never got to know him. I worked in his hospital, cleaned his office, and I never knew. What are you going to do? Elijah was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm going to keep working. I frowned. What do you mean? My shift. Tonight. I'm going in. He closed the laptop. I own the hospital now, legally. But I don't know how to run it. Don't know the first thing about administration or finances or board meetings. So I'm going to keep doing what I know how to do until I figure out the rest. Elijah. I'm serious, Linda. If I walk in there tomorrow acting like I own the place, everyone will hate me. They'll think I'm some fraud who conned a dying man. But if I keep working, if I show them I'm still the same person I was before, maybe they'll give me a chance. Or they'll think you're crazy. Maybe. He almost smiled. But I'd rather be crazy than arrogant. That night, Elijah showed up for his 11 o'clock shift. I'd gone home and come back, needed to see this with my own eyes. He punched in like always, got his cart, started his rounds on the 4th floor. Word spread fast. Within an hour, people were finding excuses to walk by and see if it was true. The janitor who inherited $40 million was mopping floors. Some nurses smiled at him, uncautiously. Others whispered. A few doctors ignored him completely, probably didn't know yet or didn't believe it, but Catherine Hartwell knew, and she showed up at 2 in the morning, still in her scrubs from a surgery that had run late. Found Elijah cleaning the doctor's lounge. I was down the hall. Heard the whole thing. What are you doing? Catherine's voice was tight, controlled. Working. Elijah didn't stop mopping. You own the hospital now. You don't work here. You can't. I still work here, at least until I figure out what comes next. Catherine stepped into the lounge. You're not going to get away with this. Whatever you did to convince my father, I didn't do anything except mop his floors. Elijah looked at her directly. For 20 years, while he watched me and never told me who he was. I didn't ask for this. I didn't manipulate anyone. I just showed up and did my job. You expect me to believe that? I don't expect anything from you. He went back to mopping. Your father made his choice. I'm trying to respect it, even though I don't fully understand it either. He was dying. He wasn't thinking clearly. He had 3 psychiatric evaluations, all confirmed competence. James Morrison told you that. Elijah's voice was still calm, quiet. You can contest the will if you want. That's your right. But you can't change what he decided. Catherine stared at him, really looked at him, and for a moment I thought I saw something shift in her expression. Recognition, maybe, or the realization that this man, this janitor she'd laughed at, was actually her half-brother. Then her face hardened again. You're not family, she said. You're a mistake he made 45 years ago, a mistake he threw money at to make go away. You don't get to claim him now that he's dead. I'm not claiming him. I'm just trying to understand him. Elijah's hands tightened on the mop handle. And for the record, I'm the mistake he made. But I'm also the son he watched for 20 years, the one he thought deserved his hospital more than the daughter he raised. Think about what that means. Catherine left without another word. I stepped out from where I'd been listening. That went well. Elijah laughed, bitter, tired. She's right about one thing. I am a mistake, just not the kind she thinks. You're not a mistake. My mother thought I was worth $20,000. My father thought I was worth $40 million. Neither of them thought I was worth the truth. He pushed his cart toward the next room. I need to finish my shift. I watched him go, watched him push that cart down the empty hallway of a hospital he now owned, wearing the same uniform he'd worn for 20 years. And I thought about Dr. Hartwell, about the choice he'd made, about whether leaving everything to a son you never claimed could make up for abandoning him in the first place. I didn't know the answer, but I was about to watch Elijah try to find it. Catherine filed the contest 3 days later. James Morrison called Elijah at home to tell him. I was there. We'd started having coffee together in the mornings after his shift, both of us trying to process what was happening. She's alleging undue influence, James said through the speakerphone. She claims you had inappropriate access to Dr. Hartwell during vulnerable late-night hours, that you manipulated a dying man into changing his will. Elijah set down his coffee. What do I need to do? Nothing yet. I'll file our response. But Elijah, this is going to get public. Medical community's small in Phoenix. People will talk. They're already talking. This will be different. Court filings, depositions, your entire life examined. James paused. Are you prepared for that? Elijah looked at me, then at the phone. Do I have a choice? You could settle. Give her part of it, the hospital or the assets. Walk away with something instead of fighting for everything. And let everyone think I conned a dying man? Or let everyone think you're reasonable? Elijah was quiet for a long moment. I didn't ask for this. But he gave it to me for a reason. I want to know what that reason was before I give any of it away. Okay then, James said. We fight. The hospital started treating Elijah differently after the news broke. Not all at once, gradually, like a slow shift in the air pressure. Some nurses started calling him Mr. Thompson instead of Elijah. Made him uncomfortable. I saw it in the way his shoulders tensed when they did it. Some doctors nodded at him now when they passed in the hallways. Before, they'd looked through him. Now they saw him, acknowledged him, not out of respect, out of wariness. He was a threat now, someone who owned things. The housekeeping staff didn't know how to act. Maria, who'd worked alongside him for 15 years, asked me privately if Elijah was going to fire everyone and bring in his own people. His own people? I said. Maria, you're his people. He's been working with you for 15 years. But now he's rich, Miss Linda. Rich people don't stay friends with janitors. Elijah's not like that. Everyone's like that when money's involved. She wasn't completely wrong. I'd seen it before. People who changed when circumstances changed, who forgot where they came from as soon as they didn't have to be there anymore. But Elijah kept showing up. Every night, 11 to 7, same uniform, same cart, same quiet way of moving through the building like he belonged to it instead of owning it. 2 weeks after Catherine filed the contest, the hospital board called an emergency meeting. Elijah was invited. Required to attend, actually. As the owner, he asked me to come with him. "I don't know what I'm walking into," he said. "And I trust you." The boardroom was on the 7th floor. Executive territory. Elijah had cleaned it 1,000 times, never sat in it. 8 board members, all in expensive suits, all looking at Elijah like he was a problem they needed to solve. Catherine was there too. Senior surgeon, board member by virtue of her position. She sat at the opposite end of the table from where they'd put Elijah's chair. Thomas Brennan, the board chairman, called the meeting to order. He was 60-something, gray hair, the kind of voice that expected to be listened to. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for joining us. You said it was required." Elijah's voice was calm, even. "Yes, well, we have some concerns." Thomas folded his hands. "As I'm sure you understand, this situation is unprecedented. The ownership of a $40 million hospital transferred to someone with no administrative experience, no medical background, no credentials," Catherine finished. "That's what you mean, right, Thomas? Let's be direct." Thomas shot her a look. "What I mean is that we're concerned about continuity, about leadership, about the hospital's future under uncertain circumstances." "The circumstances aren't uncertain," Elijah said quietly. "I own the hospital. That's certain. The will is legal. The DNA is confirmed. Everything else is just people uncomfortable with who ended up owning what." The room went silent. "Mr. Thompson," another board member spoke up, Jennifer Park, CFO. "No one is questioning the legality of the transfer, but surely you understand our position. Mercy Hospital serves 15,000 patients annually, employs 1,200 people, maintains research programs and surgical residencies. It's not something that can be managed without expertise." "I agree." That surprised them. I saw it in the way they shifted in their seats. "Which is why I'm not planning to manage it," Elijah continued. "You are. Same board, same administrators, same structure. I own it. You run it." "Then what exactly do you plan to do?" Thomas asked. "Learn, watch, ask questions." Elijah looked around the table, met each person's eyes, and decide what kind of hospital this should be. Because right now, it's the kind of hospital where the owner's son cleans floors for 20 years and nobody notices something's wrong with that picture. Catherine's jaw tightened. "Are you suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts." Elijah's voice stayed level. "I worked here for 20 years, made minimum wage, no benefits for the first 10 years until Linda fought for them, no sick days, no vacation time, and I was just one person. There are 50 people in housekeeping, 80 in food services, 100 in various support roles." He leaned forward slightly. "Dr. Hartwell left me this hospital for a reason. I think the reason is that he wanted someone who understood what it's like at the bottom to make decisions from the top." The room was completely quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning. "So here's what I'm proposing," Elijah said. "You keep running operations, but I want monthly reports, financial, patient outcomes, employee satisfaction, everything, and I want to sit in on board meetings, not to make decisions yet, to understand how decisions get made." "That's reasonable," Jennifer said slowly. "But if Catherine's contest succeeds," Thomas added, "all of this becomes moot. Then we deal with that if it happens." Elijah stood. "Until then, I'm the owner, and you work for me, not the other way around." He walked out. I followed, leaving 8 board members sitting in stunned silence. In the hallway, Elijah sagged against the wall. "That was terrifying," he said. "You didn't look terrified." "I was faking it." He pressed a hand to his chest, my heart still pounding. "You did good in there. I have no idea what I'm doing, Linda. Nobody does it first. You'll figure it out." He looked at me. "Will I, though? Or will I just be some janitor pretending to understand things that are way over his head?" "You're not just some janitor. You never were. Tell that to Catherine. Tell that to the board. Please tell that to everyone who looks at me and sees someone who doesn't belong. You belong because the person who built this place said you belong. That's enough. Elijah pushed off the wall. I need to get to work. My shift starts in an hour. You just stood up to the hospital board. You don't think you've earned a night off? If I stop working, people will think I've changed, that the money made me different. He started walking toward the elevator. I need them to know I'm still the same person, even if I'm not sure that's true anymore. Over the next month, things started shifting in ways I hadn't expected. Elijah attended his first board meeting as an observer, sat quietly in the corner, took notes, asked 2 questions the entire 3-hour session. Both were about patient wait times in the ER and why they'd increased. The board had no good answer. He started reading everything: financial reports, patient satisfaction surveys, employee turnover data, medical outcome statistics. He'd bring binders to work and read during his breaks, highlight things, make notes in the margins. You're becoming an expert, I told him one night when I found him in the break room surrounded by papers. I'm becoming informed. That's different. He didn't look up from the report he was reading. Did you know we lose 6% of our nursing staff annually to other hospitals? And the exit interviews all say the same things: low pay, high stress, lack of support. That's pretty standard for healthcare. It shouldn't be. He finally looked up. We're a $40 million hospital. We can afford to pay our nurses what they're worth. We just choose not to because it's easier to replace them than to value them. You sound like an owner. I sound like someone who's been on the bottom and knows what it feels like. He submitted his first formal proposal to the board 2 weeks later. A comprehensive benefits overhaul for all support staff, better pay, real sick days, actual vacation time, healthcare coverage that didn't require choosing between treatment and rent. The board rejected it. Too expensive, not sustainable, bad precedent. Elijah submitted it again, with modifications, with projected costs, with comparison data from other hospitals. They rejected it again. The third time, he came to the board meeting himself, stood at the front of the room, put his proposal on the screen. I've been patient, he said. I've learned your processes. I've tried to work within your framework, but I need you to understand something. I'm not asking. I'm telling you. These changes are happening. Mr. Thompson, Thomas started, the board has fiduciary responsibility. To whom? To shareholders? We don't have shareholders. I'm the owner, the only owner. And I'm telling you that this hospital will value the people who keep it running, or I'll find a board that will. Jennifer spoke carefully. You're talking about firing us? I'm talking about recognizing that things have to change. My father built this place, but he also created a system where people like me, people who work just as hard as doctors but in less prestigious ways, get treated as disposable. I'm ending that, with you or without you. He walked out. The board approved his proposal the next day. Catherine confronted him 3 nights later, found him in the 4th floor hallway at 2 a.m, emptying a trash bin. You're destroying everything he built, she said. Elijah looked up. I'm fixing what he built. By throwing money at housekeepers and cafeteria workers? By making it unprofitable to run? By making it humane to work at? He tied off the trash bag. Your father watched me mop these floors for 20 years. You know what I think he was doing? Feeling guilty? Every night watching someone with his blood clean up other people's messes because he was too cowardly to claim him. That's what aided him. That's why he left me everything. That's not... Yes, it is. Elijah's voice was firm now, certain. He was trying to fix his guilt, and you know what? I'm going to let him. I'm going to use his money to make this place what it should have been all along. A hospital that cares about everyone in it, not just the people with medical degrees. Catherine stared at him. You really believe that? I really do. Then you're a fool. Mercy Hospital is a business. It has to be run like one. It's a hospital first, business second. Elijah picked up the trash bag. Your father understood that in the end. That's the difference between you and him. Catherine left without another word. But I'd seen her face. And for the first time since the will reading, she didn't look angry. She looked uncertain. 2 days later, her lawyer called James Morrison, requested a meeting, off the record. James called Elijah. She wants to talk about a potential settlement. What kind of settlement? Unknown, but she's talking. That's progress. Elijah looked at me. We were in his apartment again, coffee and confusion, our new routine. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think she's realizing she might lose, and she's trying to get ahead of it. Or she's trying to manipulate me into giving her what she wants without a court making me." "Could be that too." Elijah was quiet. Then, "Set up the meeting. But I want you there. And I'm not giving up the hospital. Whatever else she wants. Fine. But not that." The meeting was scheduled for the following week, and I had a feeling Catherine Hartwell was about to learn exactly who her half-brother was, the man who mopped floors, and now owned everything. The meeting happened in James Morrison's conference room. Same place as the will reading. Felt deliberate. Looks like Catherine wanted to face this in the space where everything had changed. She came with her lawyer, Diane Foster, sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who looked like she'd won more battles than she'd lost. Michael came too, moral support maybe, or witness. Elijah brought me and James. That was it. We sat on opposite sides of the table. Catherine looked tired, thinner than she'd been a month ago, like fighting this had cost her something. Diane opened. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. We're here to discuss a potential resolution that avoids lengthy litigation." "I'm listening," Elijah said. "My client is willing to withdraw her contest of the will under specific conditions." James leaned forward. "What conditions?" Diane slid a document across the table. "Catherine retains her position as senior cardiac surgeon with guaranteed tenure. She receives the family home as specified in the original will, plus an additional $5 million from the estate's liquid assets. And she maintains her seat on the hospital board with equal voting power to Mr. Thompson on all operational decisions." Elijah read the document, didn't speak for a long time. "So she keeps her job, gets the house, gets $5 million, and gets to override any decision I make at the hospital." "Equal say," Diane corrected. "Not override. Partnership." "Partnership." Elijah looked at Catherine directly. "Is that what you want, to be my partner?" Catherine met his eyes. "I want to make sure my father's hospital doesn't get destroyed by someone who doesn't understand it." "You mean someone who's not a doctor?" "I mean someone who's been here 20 years and never once asked to do more than push a mop." The words hung in the air, sharp, deliberate. Elijah's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "I pushed a mop because that was the job I could get, not the job I wanted. There's a difference." "Then what did you want?" Catherine asked. Not confrontational now, genuinely curious. Or performing curiosity, I couldn't tell. To understand, to be part of something that mattered, to work in a place that saved lives. He paused. "I took pre-med classes for 15 years, online, community college, failed organic chemistry twice before I passed it. Studied medical terminology by reading textbooks I bought used on the internet. I never stopped wanting more. I just didn't have the resources to get it." Catherine blinked. "You were trying to become a doctor?" "I was trying to become educated. Whether that led to medical school or just understanding the place I worked, either way, I wanted to know more." Something shifted in Catherine's expression. Brief, gone quickly, but I saw it. "The terms aren't acceptable," Elijah said, pushing the document back across the table. "I'll agree to the house. I'll agree to her keeping her position and board seat, but I won't agree to equal voting power, and I won't agree to the $5 million. Diane frowned. "Then we have nothing to discuss. Let me finish." Elijah looked at Catherine. "I'll agree to advisory status. You advise on all major medical and operational decisions. I listen. I take your expertise seriously. But final decisions are mine, because that's what your father intended when he left me ownership." "That's not a partnership," Catherine said. "No, it's reality." Elijah's voice was firm but not unkind. "You're a brilliant surgeon. You know medicine in ways I never will. But you don't know what it's like to work 3 jobs and still barely make rent. You don't know what it's like to choose between seeing a doctor and paying utilities. You don't understand the hospital from the bottom up, and I don't understand it from the top down. So we need each other, but not as equals, as people with different expertise trying to build something better." Michael spoke for the first time. "That's surprisingly reasonable." "It's honest," Elijah said. "Now, I'm not interested in games. I'm interested in doing what your father-in-law wanted me to do, which I think was to bring a different perspective to how healthcare works." Catherine was quiet for a long time. Then, "What about the $5 million? You don't need it. You make $500,000 a year as a surgeon. You have your own investments. your own career. Elijah leaned forward. I'm not punishing you. I'm just not rewarding you for fighting what was never yours to begin with. He was my father, and he chose to leave his hospital to me. That's hard, I understand. But taking money won't make it hurt less. Catherine's eyes were bright, not quite tears. Close. You have no idea what it's like, watching your father give everything to a stranger. I'm not a stranger. I'm his son. Elijah's voice was gentle now. I'm your half-brother. Whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, we're family. Broken, complicated, built on lies and secrets, but family. I don't know you. Then get to know me. Work with me at the hospital. Sit across from me at board meetings. Teach me what I don't know and let me teach you what you've never had to think about. He paused. Or keep fighting me and waste years on litigation that ends the same way. Your choice. Diane looked at Catherine, waiting. Catherine looked at Michael. He gave the smallest nod. Then Catherine looked at Elijah. Really looked. Not at the janitor, not at the threat. At the man, her father's son, her half-brother. Okay, she said quietly. Advisory, board seat, the house, no additional money. And you actually listen when I tell you something's a bad idea. I'll listen. Now, I can't promise I'll agree. That's as good as I'm going to get, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Catherine turned to Diane. Draw up the new terms. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. New agreement drafted, signed. The contest would be formally withdrawn within 48 hours. Walking out, Michael pulled Elijah aside. I hung back but could hear. She's been harder on you than she needed to be, Michael said. It's not about the money, it's about what it means, her father picking you. I know. Do you? Because she spent her whole life trying to be worthy of him. Perfect grades, top medical school, cardiac surgery because that's what he did. Everything she accomplished was to make him proud, and then he left his life's work to someone who... He stopped. Someone who mopped floors, Elijah finished, someone he never claimed. Someone who didn't have to work for his approval because he never gave you the chance. Michael's voice was gentle, sad. It's not fair to you, but it's not fair to her either. You both got cheated by the same man in different ways. Elijah nodded slowly. I'll try to remember that. Good. Because she's your sister, and family's worth fighting for, even when it's complicated. Michael walked away to join Catherine and Diane at the elevator. Elijah stood in the hallway looking uncertain, shaken. You okay? I asked. I don't know. That wasn't what I expected. What did you expect? More fighting, more anger, not understanding. He looked at me. Was I too hard on her? You were fair. That's different from hard. Fair doesn't feel good when you're on the receiving end of it. We went back to his apartment. He was quiet the whole drive, processing, working through something in his head that he couldn't quite get to yet. Inside, he made coffee, stared out his small kitchen window at the parking lot below. Can I ask you something? He said. Always. Do you think he loved me, Dr. Hartwell, in whatever way he was capable of? I thought about it. Really thought. I think he regretted you, which is close to love but not the same. That's depressing. It's honest. I leaned against the counter. He watched you for 20 years. That's something. Maybe not enough, but something. I wish he'd talked to me, just once, actually talked instead of watching from a distance and making plans I had no part in. Would you have wanted to know? If he'd told you who he was? Elijah was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I had my mother. She loved me enough for 2 parents. Maybe that was enough. He turned from the window. But I'll never know now. He made the choice for me. Decided I was better off not knowing. That's what hurts. He didn't trust me with my own truth. So what are you going to do? Keep working. Keep learning. Try to be worthy of what he gave me even though I'm not sure anyone could be. He smiled. Thin. Tired. And try not to screw up a $40 million hospital. 3 days later, Catherine showed up for a board meeting. First one since the contest was withdrawn. She sat across from Elijah, nodded when he came in. Dr. Hartwell, he said. Mr. Thompson. Thomas Brennan looked between them, uncertain. Shall we begin? The meeting proceeded. Budget reports, patient outcomes, routine business. Then Elijah brought up his next proposal. Extended family leave for all staff, paid, 12 weeks for new parents regardless of gender. The board shifted. Here we go again. But before Thomas could object, Catherine spoke. I support it. The room went silent. You do? Thomas said carefully. It's good policy, supported by medical evidence. Parental stress negatively impacts patient care. We should have implemented this years ago. She looked at Elijah. Though I'd recommend 16 weeks instead of 12. Aligns with international standards. Elijah blinked. Okay, 16 weeks. And we should include bereavement leave, 2 weeks minimum for immediate family loss. Agreed. Catherine almost smiled. See, we can work together when the ideas don't suck. The proposal passed, unanimously. After the meeting, Catherine stopped Elijah in the hallway. My father used to bring me here when I was a kid, she said, looking around the executive floor like she was seeing it differently. He'd let me watch surgeries from the observation deck, make rounds with him. He wanted me to love it the way he did. Did you? I loved that he was showing me his world. I loved the idea of saving lives, but I didn't love the business part, the administration, the decisions about money and resources. She looked at Elijah. He was good at that. The balance between medicine and management, I never learned it, too focused on the surgical side. You're an incredible surgeon. I know, said without arrogance, just fact. But I'm not a leader, not the way he was. Not the way he apparently thought you could be. I don't know if I can be either. Then we'll both figure it out. She paused. I've been thinking about what you said, about understanding the hospital from the bottom up. I want to see that. What you saw, what you experienced. What do you mean? Shadow you. For a week. Do what you do. Clean what you clean. See what you see. Catherine's expression was serious. I need to understand what I've been missing. Elijah stared at her. You want to work as a janitor? I want to work with you. Learn what you know. Maybe you learn what I know in exchange. She held out her hand. Partners, not equal, but trying. Elijah shook her hand. When do we start? Tonight, 11 to 7. I already cleared my schedule. That night, Catherine Hartwell, cardiac surgeon, and daughter of the hospital's founder, woman who made $500,000 a year, showed up in scrubs and work gloves ready to clean. Elijah handed her a mop. She took it. And somewhere, I thought, their father was watching. Maybe pleased. Maybe surprised. Maybe just grateful that the two children he'd broken in different ways were trying to build something together from the pieces he'd left behind. Catherine lasted 4 hours before she had to sit down. She was in the break room, water bottle in hand, sweat on her forehead. This is harder than a 12-hour surgery. Elijah was eating a sandwich, his usual midnight meal. Different muscles, different kind of tired. My back is screaming. Yeah, that doesn't go away. You just get used to it. Catherine looked at her hands, red, starting to blister from the mop handle. How long did it take you to get used to it? Couple years, maybe longer. He offered her half his sandwich. You don't have to keep going. You made your point. What point? That you're willing to try. That's enough. No, it's not. Catherine took the sandwich. I need to understand. Actually understand. Not just see it for one night and go back to my comfortable life. They worked the rest of the shift in silence. Elijah showing Catherine the routine. Which rooms to clean first. How to empty biohazard containers safely. Where the supply closets were. The small details of a job she'd never once noticed being done. At 5 a.m, they were cleaning the surgical wing. Catherine's territory. The place where she was brilliant. Now she was mopping the floors outside operating rooms she'd performed miracles in. A nurse walked by. Did a double take. Dr. Hartwell? Catherine looked up. Hey, Rachel. Why are you? Learning, Catherine said simply. Don't mind me. Rachel looked at Elijah, then back at Catherine. Walked away, shaking her head. By 7, Catherine could barely move. Elijah walked her to her car. Tomorrow night? She asked. You sure? I said a week. I meant it. She got in her car, paused before closing the door. Thank you for not making this weird. It's already weird, Elijah said. Catherine almost laughed. Yeah, it really is. She came back the next night, and the night after that. By the fourth night, her hands had calluses forming. By the seventh, she could keep up with Elijah's pace without needing breaks. They talked while they worked. Small things at first. Music, coffee preferences, favorite surgical cases. Elijah's community college classes. Then, bigger things. He used to quiz me, Catherine said one night. They were cleaning the third-floor conference room. Medical terminology, surgical procedures. He'd ask me questions over breakfast, and I'd have to answer perfectly or he'd look disappointed. That sounds exhausting. It was, but I thought that's what love looked like, expecting perfection, pushing for more, never being satisfied. She squeezed out the mop. I didn't realize until recently that might not be love, might just be control. Elijah was quiet for a moment. My mother never pushed me. She just supported. Whatever I wanted to do, she found a way to help, even when we had nothing. When I said I wanted to take college classes, she picked up extra shifts to help pay for them. Never asked if it was practical or if I'd succeed. She just believed I could. That sounds nice. It was, but it also made me feel guilty, like I had to succeed to justify her sacrifices. He looked at Catherine. Maybe we both had parents who loved us, but didn't know how to do it right. Maybe. They worked in silence for a while. Then Catherine said, I found his journals, my father's, after he died. Boxes of them in his study, 40 years of entries. Elijah stopped cleaning. What did they say? A lot of things. Medical cases, hospital politics, his thoughts on life and death and medicine. She paused. And entries about you, starting 30 years ago when he found out you existed. What kind of entries? Regret mostly, wondering who you were, what you'd become, whether you hated him, whether you even knew he existed. Catherine met his eyes. He wrote about seeing you for the first time at the hospital. You were 25, just hired. He saw your name on the new employee roster and nearly had a heart attack. Richard Thompson, his son, working as a janitor in the building he built. What did he do? Nothing. That's what killed him. He did nothing. Just watched from a distance and wrote about it. She resumed mopping. There's an entry from 15 years ago. You were 30. He wrote about how you'd stopped in the hallway to help an elderly patient find her room even though it wasn't your job. He wrote, My son is kind. I gave him nothing and he became kind anyway. I don't know if I should be proud or ashamed. Elijah's hands had stopped moving. Can I read them? The journals? That's why I'm telling you. I brought them. They're in my car. Catherine set down the mop. I thought about keeping them. They're all I have left of him, but they're about you too. You have as much right to them as I do. After their shift, Catherine brought up 3 boxes of leather-bound journals, set them on the break room table. He wrote almost every day, she said. 40 years of thoughts. I've only read about half. It's hard. Seeing who he really was versus who I thought he was. Are they different? Very. She pushed the boxes toward Elijah. Read them. Maybe they'll help you understand why he did what he did. Elijah spent the next week reading, every spare moment, between shifts, during breaks, at home until 3 in the morning when he had to be back at work at 11. I brought him dinner on the 3rd night, found him surrounded by open journals, pages marked with sticky notes, his eyes red from reading. He was lonely, Elijah said without looking up, for decades, even when he was married, even when he was successful. He was lonely and he didn't know why until he saw me and realized what he'd given up. Did that make it better or worse? Both. He closed the journal he was reading. There's an entry from 10 years ago. I was 35, still taking classes, still showing up every night, still trying. He wrote, I could tell him, I should tell him. But what would I say? I'm the father who abandoned you, but I've been watching you mop floors for 15 years and I'm very proud. It's insulting. He deserves better than my guilt. So he left you the hospital instead. Yeah, $40 million instead of a conversation. That was easier for him. Elijah stood, stretched, his back cracked. I don't know if I can forgive him, and I don't even know if I should. You don't have to decide that right now. When do I decide? When does it stop hurting that my father watched me struggle and did nothing? I didn't have an answer. Some things don't have good answers. A week after Catherine's shadowing ended, she came to Elijah with a proposal. They were in his office. He'd finally accepted one small room on the third floor, nothing fancy, reviewing budget reports. I want to create a program, Catherine said. Paid education for staff. Any staff member who wants to pursue higher education, nursing school, medical school, whatever, the hospital covers tuition, full ride. Elijah looked up from the report. That would cost millions. I know, but think about it. How many people work here who have potential but no opportunity? How many janitors or food service workers or security guards could become nurses or techs or even doctors if they just had access? She leaned forward. You took classes for 15 years on your own dime. Imagine if someone had helped you. Where you'd be now. I'd be a doctor maybe, if I'd been able to afford medical school. Exactly. So let's make it possible for other people. The Elijah Thompson Education Initiative. She pulled out a folder. I've been working on this for 2 weeks. Projected costs, funding sources, eligibility requirements. We could start small. 10 people the first year. See how it goes. Elijah read through the proposal. This is actually feasible. I know, I'm smart, remember? He almost smiled. Why are you doing this? Because you're right. About the hospital, about how it should value everyone. Not just doctors. And because, she stopped, because I'm starting to understand what my father saw in you. You make people want to be better, even people who thought they were already good enough. The program launched 3 months later. 15 staff members applied, 10 were accepted. Maria from housekeeping was one of them, pursuing her nursing degree at 47 years old, finally able to afford it. She cried when Elijah told her she'd been accepted. I never thought... She couldn't finish, just hugged him. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. It's Elijah. It's always been Elijah. No, sir. You're Mr. Thompson now. You earned that. The hospital started changing in small ways, then bigger ones. Staff turnover decreased. Patient satisfaction scores increased. Nurses who'd been planning to leave stayed because suddenly the hospital was investing in them instead of just using them. The Phoenix media noticed. Local news ran a story. Janitor turned owner revolutionizes hospital culture. The piece interviewed staff, patients, board members. Everyone said the same thing. Mercy Hospital felt different now, better, more human. Catherine was interviewed too, standing beside Elijah in the hospital lobby. What's it like working with your half-brother? The reporter asked. Catherine looked at Elijah. It's like working with someone who actually cares, which is refreshing. Was it difficult? Accepting the inheritance situation? It was impossible. Then it was hard. Now it's just reality. He's my brother. This is his hospital. And I'm learning that sometimes the person you least expect is exactly the person who should be in charge. After the interview aired, something shifted. The whispers stopped. The doubt faded. People started seeing Elijah not as the janitor who got lucky, but as the owner who was actually changing things. But there was still one thing unresolved. One night, 6 months after the will reading, Elijah asked me to drive him somewhere. Wouldn't say where. Just gave me an address in North Phoenix. We pulled up to a cemetery, same one where his mother was buried. I need to visit someone, he said. We walked through the grounds, past his mother's grave, to a newer section, marble headstones, expensive, well-maintained. Dr. Richard Hartwell's grave was simple despite the money behind it, just his name, birth and death dates, no flowery epitaph. Elijah stood there for a long time, not speaking, not moving, just standing in front of the grave of the father he'd never really known. Finally, he spoke. I read all your journals, every entry about me, every time you wondered who I was and did nothing about it. His voice was quiet but steady. I don't forgive you. I don't know if I ever will. You had 30 years to be my father, and you chose to be my observer instead. That was cowardly. You said so yourself, and you were right. The wind moved through the cemetery, rustling leaves, carrying away words. But I'm going to honor what you gave me, not because you deserve it, because the hospital deserves it, the people working there deserve it, and because maybe, in your guilt-ridden, cowardly way, you actually did see something in me worth investing in. Elijah's hands were in his pockets. I'm going to be better than you. Better to my staff. Better to my family. Better at actually showing up instead of just watching from a distance. He looked at the headstone. I hope that's enough, because it's all I can give you. We stood there a while longer. Then Elijah turned and walked back to the car. You okay? I asked when we were driving home. Yeah, I think I am. He looked out the window at Phoenix passing by. I spent 6 months angry at a dead man, angry at what he did and what he didn't do. But I can't change any of that. I can only change what comes next. And what comes next? I build something better. I make Mercy Hospital the place it should have been all along. I help people like Maria become nurses. Like me, become owners of their own destinies. He looked at me. I'm not just the janitor anymore, Linda. I'm not just the abandoned son. I'm the person who gets to decide what this all means. That's a lot of pressure. Yeah, but I'm used to pressure. I've been carrying it my whole life. At least now I get to do something meaningful with it. We drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Elijah said, Thank you. For what? For being here. For every morning coffee. For driving me places. For believing I wasn't crazy when everyone else thought I was. He smiled. For being my friend even when being my friend got complicated. That's what friends do. I know, but I wanted to say it anyway. 2 weeks later, Catherine invited Elijah to dinner at the family home, the one she'd inherited from the will. He almost said no, then decided that was something the old Elijah would do, avoid uncomfortable things. New Elijah walked into uncomfortable things and dealt with them. Michael answered the door. Hey, come in. The house was beautiful, old Phoenix money, Spanish colonial architecture, tile floors and high ceilings and the particular quiet that comes with expensive insulation. Catherine was in the kitchen, cooking. She looked up when Elijah came in. I wasn't sure you'd come. Neither was I. Well, you're here now, she gestured at the table. Sit. Dinner's almost ready. It was strange and awkward and surprisingly comfortable all at once. They talked about the hospital, about Catherine's latest surgery, about Elijah's struggle to understand financial forecasting models. Sarah, the granddaughter, joined them halfway through. She'd been distant before. Now she looked at Elijah with curiosity instead of suspicion. You're really turning the hospital around, she said. Everyone's talking about it. The residents, the attendings, everyone. I'm trying. No, you're succeeding. She pushed food around her plate. I've been thinking about the education program, the one you and my mom created. I want to help, maybe mentor some of the participants. We'd love that. After dinner, Catherine showed Elijah around the house, his father's study, his mother's garden, the rooms where Richard Hartwell had lived and thought and made decisions. In the study, Catherine pulled a framed photo from the desk drawer. I found this after he died, hidden. Never displayed. The photo was old, faded, a young woman, beautiful, black, smiling, holding a baby. On the back, in Dr. Bar Hartwell's handwriting, Diane and Elijah, 6 months old. He kept it, Catherine said softly. For 45 years, hidden but kept. Elijah stared at the photo, his mother, himself, evidence that he'd mattered enough to remember, if not enough to claim. You can have it, Catherine said. Are you sure? It's yours. It always was. She put it in his hands. I have my memories of him. You should have yours, even if they're second-hand. Elijah tucked the photo carefully into his jacket pocket. Thank you. We're family, Catherine said. Complicated, broken, built on lies, but family. You said that at the will reading. You were right. Walking out to his car later, Elijah stopped, looked back at the house, at Catherine and Michael and Sarah standing in the doorway waving goodbye. His family, by blood and by choice. By accident and by intention, not the family he'd wanted, but the family he had. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.